My initial plan for my 2020 read was to catch up on all the bestseller books I'd missed on for the past decade, which was as impossible as it sounds, even though I read over 50 books. Nonetheless, it helped me to get to know my favorite genres better, also the book market. I also got to know some new favorite authors, which was awesome, but all leads to the fact that I'm going to suffer alongside thousands of other nerds until these following books are released. But before we start, let me begin by saying, Durud my friends, I'm Shahrzad, a book, movie, language nerd from Iran and currently a stock author. And every week on Shahrzad's Stories channel, we hang out together to talk about books and anything nerdy. So if you find any kind of resemblance of yourself in me, consider subscribing and turning on a notification. I just know we're gonna have so much fun hanging out together. On to the long-awaited books. I'm gonna start with Iron Widow by Xiran Jay. This sci-fi novel inspired by China's notorious Empress Wu Zetian is Xiran's debut novel. No, I have not received an hard copy. I know the author by her YouTube channel, or more precisely speaking by her first video, which was a rant on everything culturally wrong with Mulan 2020 movie, where she talked in details about all the cultural misconceptions and inaccuracies in that film. I love that video, and not just because I'm a Chinese language alum and found that video super informative and educational, but also because of what she said about Chinese culture being underrepresented and therefore more endangered by these shitty inspired contents that might or might not have been her word of choice. As a Middle Eastern, I can tell you for sure how irksome it is when in the movies your people are either portrayed as a bunch of terrorists, or when Hollywood people, or worse recently authors, decide to honor your history and culture by mashing up every cliche stereotypes out there. An example of that would be women wearing only belly dance attire. Yes, it's exquisite and beautiful, but believe it or not, in this enormous region on this planet, with all the different cultures and history, not every woman's attire of choice would have been going out half naked. Do I also need to mention, if we omit those foreign words and the exaggerated brown skin of the characters, they're nothing but white characters all over again in another white story, because those stories I've found represent nothing of the cultures I know and have studied. Long story short, because it's a can of worms and deserving on its own separate video, Americanization happens all over these diverse books, which is painful as because it hurts to watch these people being promoted as if they'd done us a favor, which makes it all more important to support these authors who are actually coming from these underrepresented cultures and know what they're talking about. And let's be honest, reading diverse books with characters who, apart from their exaggerated skin color and foreign names, are no different from normal white characters from normal contemporary novels, is never gonna be as fun, as adventurous as reading from a perspective of someone native to that underrepresented culture. Iron Widow, with its release date on September 2021, is inspired by historical and mythical figures from all across the history of China, especially Wu Zetian, the only empress in Chinese history. And it's set in another world and on another planet. Also, do you remember the good old love triangles and YA books? Of course you do! We've all had way more than our fair share of it. You might be surprised that the two male protagonists in this novel are not driven by jealousy, because the romance in this novel is actually an MFM polyamorous relationship. Something we rarely get to see in YA, which makes it more important for us to recommend this book to all those people who appreciate this kind of dynamic in the stories. Whether it's a duology, trilogy, or a series, it is not clear. We can only see the untitled second book on Goodreads, but I read in one of the comments that it's due 2 years after the release of the first book. I really hope I'd love this book, or I will fall even deeper into the pit of depression. On to the next book, which I'm surprised I haven't yet died of waiting for, which is none other but A Court of Silver Flames by Xiran Jay. I could go on forever talking about why I love A Court of Thorns and Roses series. But for now, I'm just gonna share the information Sarah gave on her 2 live chat videos on YouTube after the release of Crescent City, which you too might have postponed watching until you finish Crescent City. First of all, she said that the specific audience of this book is going to be adult, and the reason behind the cover changes, as so many people suggested, is not that the publisher wants people to purchase all the series anew. It's because they're considering marketing the whole series for adult audience instead of young adult. And we all know what it means with the target audience is going to be adults. A Court of Silver Flames is concentrated on the story of Nesta and Cassian. The first time I read this series, I hated Nesta. Later, when I reread the first 2 books, I got to see the bigger picture, and I realized the reason I didn't like her in the first place was because I was seeing some parts of myself in her, which I did not like to see. From what we glimpse in the Court of Frost and Starlight, some civil war might be happening soon, and Nesta is now headed to the Illyrian camp with the exact male she's been trying to avoid. Whether the blurb on Amazon or Goodreads says anything more, I do not wish to know. Because when I know the author and I want to read the book, I do not read the blurbs, I do not listen to interviews, I do nothing. I just want to read the book first, before my friends get to spoil it for me. Sarah mentioned in her live video that Nesta is going to face all her fear, depression, and trauma, of which Sarah J. Maas always does a perfect job showcasing in her novels. What Sarah also mentioned was that she was going through a lot of anxiety and depression during the time she was writing and editing this book, which made her feel so close to Nesta's journey in this book. I have no idea how I'm supposed to wait until February 16, 2021. I have no idea how I've been waiting this long, even though I started reading ACOTAR a few months ago. For those who have been fans for years. And honestly, 648 pages is not enough. Not when Sarah mentioned cutting off steamy scenes because they were not deemed necessary. We deserve those cutout scenes. Let me just stop here, for everyone's sake. And last, but definitely not least, Crescent City 2! I read the first book of this trilogy recently and I was depressed for over a week because it was so good. This untitled novel is expected to be released on November 2nd, 2021. And based on what Sarah teased us about, we might or might not get to see other cities on this planet. Ooh. Again, I have no idea how I'm going to wait. And I have even less idea how long I am going to be depressed after I finish reading. And that's it. Yeah. But tell me, what are you excited about for this year? This year, I personally want to read more English novels by Persian authors, whether they're international bestsellers or not. And I also want to catch up on Leigh Bardugo's Shadow and Bone series before the Netflix adaptation airs. And that's my plan for now, because this year I realized I don't really fit into the category of reading hundreds of books a year like some booktubers do, and really good for them, but it doesn't really sit well with my life and plans. But still, I'm curious about what you want to read and what are you excited about, and how was this year's read for you. So if you enjoyed this video, please go on and give the thumbs up. I'm Shahrzad, and thank you so much for watching.